everyone. My name is Dr. Purvi Parwani. I'm a multimodality imager and early career chair for Society of Cardiovascular MRI. And it's my great honor and privilege to have Dr. Matthias Stuber, who has been awarded the SCMR, a very prestigious gold medal from SCMR in 2021. Dr. Stuber is head of the section and the full professor at University of Lausanne, Switzerland. He's a visiting professor at Johns Hopkins and United States, and also invited chair at Lyric, France. He has made a distinguished and extraordinary contribution both to the field of CMR as well as the society SCMR. He's an MR physicist and a world recognized for his expertise in cardiovascular MR. He has made some seminal work in coronary angiography, has published more than 250 peer-reviewed manuscripts, reviews, and book chapters. His papers are in top journals, including NEJM, Circulation, JACC, European Heart Journal, Radiology, Nature Medicine, to name the few. His publications have been cited more than 15,000 times, and his H-index is impressive 64. His academic work has garnered impressive grant support from overall 40 grants from many different sources, including NIH, Swiss National Foundation, and many international and national entities. His groundbreaking work has made a lot of clinical impact and has resulted in at least 10 patents to date. Most importantly, he has been an extraordinary mentor for physicists and physicians interested in cardiovascular MR. He has trained more than 40 mentees, including undergrads and graduate students, postgraduate, postdoctoral fellows, and junior faculty. He has served on the editorial board of SCMR journal called JCMR for almost 20 years. He has also served as a board of trustee from 2011 to 2014 to the Society of SCMR. He was the vice president of SCMR in 2017 and president in 2018. During his presidency, the society flourished with continuous growth in membership, increased numbers of international workshops, enhanced financial results, and a very successful meeting that we had in Bellevue, Washington. So it's really my true honor and pleasure to have Dr. Stuber with us today. Thank you, Dr. Stuber, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Dr. Parwani, for this very nice introduction. Pleasure to be here.
So, I told you before we started this interview that I wanted to focus mostly to the early career or maybe the mid-career CMR professionals, both cardiologists and radiologists. So I wanted to start this interview by asking you that question. Tell us about that early career, how it was for yourself, and when did you realize that you had that first breakthrough in your career?
Well, first of all, when I got in contact with MRI, and that was at the ETH in Zurich, and there, luckily, they had a group that focused on MR, and I didn't understand it at all during, the lectures. So I thought, that's something I want to learn. That's something I want to sink my teeth in. And so I went and pestered Professor Bösiger for a PhD. He said, no, I don't have a position. And I kept going back to his office and told him how interested I was. And finally, after like 5 visits, he offered me a job, which he didn't have at the outset. So that's when I learned something that's super important. Just be stubborn and pursue the prize, right? So that was a good lesson. I think that's true to this day. And then, the beginnings were kind of harsh because, as I said, I didn't understand a lot about MRI, and it is a difficult field, the physics, as much as I guess the clinical side of it. And it took me a long time until I finally felt like, yes, I'm capable of contributing in that field. And I vividly remember, when I, for the very first time after so many months and nights of programming, I all of a sudden saw lines on a human heart, which means tags, because I was focusing on tagging in my early career. And then all of a sudden, these tags showed up on the screen, and this was like, wow, I was able to do that. I was able to understand what's going on. I was able to translate this to the machine, to the language of the machine. And finally, what's coming out is exactly what we anticipated, or what we thought in theory. And this was a wonderful moment for me. This is not something you published. It's not something you ever mention in a publication or at a presentation, because it's a small step, right? But for me, as a young PhD student, it was a huge step which taught me, hey, I did understand something. I'm capable of doing something. So that was one of these first moments when I understood, yes, I can contribute to the field, and it may add meaning to what happens in cardiovascular MR.
That's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that with us. So I guess that brings me. So it seemed, you were a mentee back then, and I strongly possess that. Believe that, of course, mentors are very important for our growth. But as mentees, also, you need to possess some good qualities. So tell us kind of, how you were a mentee, and now, of course, you have been a successful mentor to so many students. So what are the good qualities for both when, as a mentee, and of course, for the mid-career that are listening and serving as mentors, what are the good qualities that you consider in these two groups?
I think one of the most essential ingredients as both a mentee and a mentor is networking.
Yeah.
It's hugely important that we network, that we also believe in others, how smart they are. Yeah. And perhaps we can learn something from them, which we then can leverage to make our own work better or richer. And perhaps we should look at ourselves in the same exact way. How could we help other people's work progress, right? And that brings me to an essential quality as a mentee as much as a mentor. I think in our field, if you are an engineer or a physicist in cardiovascular MRI, you really ought to work together with clinicians, right? Yeah. First of all, it enriches your work. Secondly, it enriches their work. And finally, it adds impact to what you're doing, because if you keep it in the petri dish, and it's never going to get any further, then it's useless, it's senseless, it doesn't help. So as a mentee, it's super important to look what others are doing and to collaborate also outside of the field a little bit. It puts you perhaps a little bit out of your comfort zone, but nevertheless, that is super important. And by the same token, if you are a mentee, you should also reach out to industry, right? Because it's also important to collaborate with them for multiple reasons. On the one hand, it might be somebody who has a future job for you, if you're interested in going to industry. On the other hand, if you manage to implement your ideas together with a vendor on their system, then again, you just make another quantum leap in the impact you have, because then so many people worldwide will get access to the technology you've developed, and you can have an impact on people's lives like that. So I think this is another quality: reach out, collaborate. And then as a mentor, I think it's important to foster that atmosphere, that your students have access to all that, to networking, to medical doctors in the hospital with whom they can collaborate. But also I've learned what's important as a mentor, which, doesn't show up when you're a mentee, is if young talent has good ideas, let them do. Even if it's not what you suggested in the grant, worry about the report on the grant yourself, right? But let the student do what he's interested in doing, because our future progress depends on the young people and no longer on people like myself. So it's important to create an atmosphere where creativity can thrive, where young talent can implement their ideas and take it to the next level.
That's amazing. You're such a visionary, and one can totally see that you have that progressive mindset that helps not only yourself or your career, but the entire department. And I think that's probably, it's lacking at many level, and in many departments today. So I think, so your journey from those days to this gold medal now, what are the three lessons that you can give to our listeners?
Well, again, I would start with the stubbornness. Stuber is a name which has already the substring stubborn in it a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
My last name. Then again, work together, translate. That's another important quality. Network, share, learn from others. And sharing is another very important quality, I think, as a researcher, because if you work together, you're so much faster. And then 1 + 1 = 3. That's what I tell my students always. Don't protect your stuff and don't try to, work on your desk and be kind of selfish or protective of your work, because there is a certain risk, right? That people think other people are gonna use their work as a stepping stone. No, if you do it right, you get out. Refer to the example of René Botnar, who is a very prominent member also of the society, and myself. We work together, like 2 meters apart in Boston. On the one hand, we were competitors because our professional interests kind of were the same going into academia. On the other hand, we enriched each other's work so tremendously that I've just learned, well, it's so essential that you work together. And there we were also very lucky to have a mentor, Warren Manning, who let us do that, who let us thrive, who let us implement our ideas. Maybe they were stupid at times, or not the smartest at least, but he let us do that. And together we were so much stronger.
Well, those are some great tips, particularly for early career, and kind of getting past and having that broader vision of what the long term looks like. So I think the next question I have for you is, of course, you are a visionary. You have been in the field for such a long time. I wanted to ask you, what do you think about where the field is going? And if we look at the next decade in your, or maybe next few decades, what do you think are going to be the biggest discoveries that are going to really change the field of cardiovascular MR?
I was thinking about that myself. I'm looking back at almost 30 years of cardiovascular MR, and I always tried myself to predict what's going to happen. And inevitably, I was utterly wrong. I think Yogi Berra once said it's much better to predict after the events have taken place. But one thing I think I've learned is there is never a dull moment in cardiac MR. There is always something new coming down the pike, which we both as engineers and clinicians will be able to leverage. It will make our life richer. It will make it more interesting. We have new opportunities, and opportunities are, of course, key. So this is always going to happen in MR. MR is a gift that keeps on giving, right? We have to realize that. And as for the future developments that will change our lives, I think another constant in MR is change, right? So there will be new things that's not even developed yet, perhaps, that we just have to keep an open mind of what's coming, right? Who would have seen artificial intelligence coming? Well, what's interesting is, when I was a student, we already talked about, I think it wasn't even called artificial intelligence, it was called something entirely different, don't remember anymore. But this has been around for a very long time, yet it hadn't caught on. And all of a sudden, there it is, it makes a big impact. Or compressed sensing, for instance, it's been around in astronomy for quite a while, and hadn't it been for Mickey Lustig, who adopted it for MRI, we may still not be using it. Mm-hmm. So on the one hand, there are things from other fields we may want to borrow, and there again, it's about an open spirit, about collaborating with others, and maybe we can then adopt these ideas into our field. on the other hand, they may not even be developed yet, and we just have to keep an open mind and embrace them when they come our way and see them as an opportunity rather than a threat. I mean, that's another thing, right?
That's very enlightening. So I have a surprise for you that I had not told you.
Okay.
I got this picture, and I had the print. I forgot to pull it out. I got this picture. This is you skiing in Canada with Dr. Michael Salerno, and I think he told me that was you. And you guys all went on skiing, and I heard from Dr. Salerno that you are an expert skier. And this is my theory, like I read books, I examine everyone that is successful very carefully. And you have been a scientist, and I wanted to ask you, so of course, work-life balance, we all know how much work-life balance is the buzzword these days, particularly my millennial generation. We love that word, and we try to do everything possible. But I also, in my mind, think that there is that hobbies give that flow. It's kind of like a meditative state for scientists like you that are out there trying to discover new things. Is it like that with skiing and you get to that state where you're like fully into it, and then you come out with new ideas, and or what other hobbies do you have? How do you get there? Like, how do you get that balance, and how do you get that new energy?
That's an interesting question. When I was, younger, I never thought about that. This term didn't even exist, much less because I'm not a native English speaker, as you can hear. I grew up in rural Switzerland, and there nobody knew about work-life balance. So, but thinking about it, I feel, the picture you just showed. There is Michael Salerno, there is Bob Weiss, there is Gabriele Bonanno, there is Michael Scher, I think is on that picture, and myself. And these became very dear friends to me. And yet we have worked together, right, in different capacities. So for me, there is not a strong separation between what I'm doing during my free time and what I'm doing professionally. My work is my hobby, and many of my collaborators, dating back almost 30 years, are my friends. Yeah. So I feel like I'm in a super privileged position that I'm getting up every morning, and my profession is my passion. That's my hobby. So it's not like there is life and there is work. No, there is just one thing, and I'm fortunate enough that this is that I'm passionate for this, right? And there are so many who get up in the morning and they have to go to work, and they're looking forward to retirement. I'm not looking forward to my retirement. Maybe my employees are looking forward to my retirement. I don't know. But I feel very, very blessed and privileged that I enjoy what I'm doing, and that there is no separation between what I'm doing in my free time and professionally. Now, having said that, that's not entirely true, of course, because I also do have a family, and my wonderful wife supported me very much in not only going from one town to another, but for moving from one city to another, and even from one continent to another, right? So she had to be ready to help with all that while we had little children. And, I was traveling a lot when I was younger in support of my professional career. So there was also a little bit that, of course, I needed support in order to be able to enjoy that. And so their life-work balance, I sometimes felt I couldn't spend enough time with my family to balance that out, if you will. On the other hand, my wife, when I talked to her about it yesterday, thought that it worked actually out very well. So, okay.
No, that's great.
But perhaps there is another element to it, and that is sport. And I always felt there are many, many parallels that are important between sports and your professional life, right? Again, it's persistence, it's stubbornness. If the going gets tough, you just keep at it. and that applies both in sports as much as it does in your professional life. So therefore, again, there is maybe not even so much of a difference between skiing and between programming an MRI scanner.
So it's a continuum for you, where
exactly, yes.
It's a continuum because you're passionate about what you do, you love what you do. No, I actually, that's a very impressive answer. I never thought about it that way, but it makes sense that, it's kind of a continuum, and that's what you live for, and that's what you like. So I guess no retirement for you in Bordeaux, huh?
Well, I hope that's going to be the case,
Okay, my last question for you, Dr. Stuber, before I let you go is, of course, I know you have served in SCMR, the society, in so many, great ways. But I wanted to learn from you, what do you think, how has the society helped shape your career, till this date?
Many of the qualities I mentioned, networking, friends, etc., that really came to a significant extent through SCMR. So I would see SCMR as the glue that keeps everything together. Mm-hmm. That gives me opportunity to see my friends and collaborators over and over again, to provide me the opportunity to see new things, to learn new things, which I can then adopt in my work, but also to get to know new people and, get new ideas. And it also feels like together, right? It's togetherness in the SCMR. You do stuff with others, also across disciplines, across different cultures. That's also super important. This is really enriching. So in a way, SCMR was always a home away from home for me. And I really love that society. And I think, much of what helped me move on in my career, or progress in my career rather, came through connections I was lucky enough to make at the SCMR.
No, that's great. I think it makes sense. The SCMR is that professional home to many of us, although I have just been with the society, since my fellowship, but it already feels so. And, I want to give back to that professional home that enriches me every year, year after year, as I attend more virtual session. So thank you again. Yeah, go ahead.
But sorry, I think I didn't even answer your question, because you were asking about, where that's going, what the future of the SCMR is. And I think the SCMR has, when I was president and when I was looking at their constitution, if you will, I think they are on very safe ground. They've always had excellent people in their leadership, and I exclude myself here. That's for others to judge, but the current leadership, outstanding individuals for whom really the progress of the society is in the center of their interests. And so I think the SCMR has a very, very bright future in that regard. So maybe it hasn't grown as much as we thought like some 20 years ago, but that's okay. It's moving forward. The meetings are getting bigger and bigger. And my real hope is that, the next meeting in 2023 is going to be an in-person meeting, so that we can network better than we are able, electronically.
We really hope so. We really hope so. Thank you so much, Dr. Stuber, for your, very valuable time. I truly appreciate it. And I hope to see you virtually at least next month in February. And congratulations again on your gold medal. And we all look forward to your gold medal talk.
Thank you so much for doing this. And I'm looking forward to seeing you virtually at the SCMR. Thank you.